Stand by to attack.
This is going to be a classic defeat.
Launch fighters.
Often does the Imperious leader himself journey all the way from Cylons.
Remember when retro sci-fi meant model ships on wires? Thunderous orchestras and explosions made from glitter and gasoline? Back when Saturday night smelled like popcorn and ozone and every kid dreamed of flying a Viper? Well, Battlestar Galactica wasn't just a TV show. It was a miracle of caffeine, chaos, and chrome that tried to out Star Wars. But behind those heroic theme cues were lawsuits, live chimps, and toys that could literally kill you. So buckle your seat harness, because we're diving into 35 of the strangest, wildest, and most gloriously broken secrets of Battlestar Galactica 1978.
By your command.
Fact 1. The show that shouldn't exist.
Order all captains to maintain visual contact on the Galactica.
Here's the thing. Battlestar Galactica was never meant to be a weekly series. Glenn Larson pitched ABC on a handful of big-budget space movies, not a TV show. Then the feature-length pilot, Saga of a Star World, pulled in massive ratings. ABC freaked out and demanded it be turned into a full series immediately. Overnight, everything changed. Writers scrambled to stretch a movie idea into 24 episodes. The special effects crew suddenly had to create blockbuster visuals week after week on TV deadlines. Sets were rushed, scripts were barely finished, and people worked until they dropped. On screen, it looked sleek and cinematic, but behind the curtain, it was chaos stitched together by caffeine and exhaustion. And somehow, fans loved every second. Fact 2. History hijacked the premiere.
Apollo, you and Serena proceed to the launch bay. Your coordinates have been programmed to your ship.
September 17, 1978. The pilot finally airs. Families are glued to their TVs, watching fleets explode and starships soar. Then suddenly, blackout. Out of nowhere, President Jimmy Carter appears on screen, announcing the Camp David peace accords between Israel and Egypt. Viewers expecting space battles were stuck watching historic diplomacy. Some were furious, others just confused. ABC had to re-air the pilot later so people could finish it properly. The whole thing turned Galactica's debut into this bizarre blend of fiction and history. It wasn't just a TV premiere anymore. It became a night fans remembered as the time world peace literally interrupted their space opera. Rarely do real-world events collide with sci-fi so directly, and Galactica ended up being part of history itself. Fact 3. The Star Wars feud.
I come to bring an offer of peace to all humans.
Here's where the drama kicks in. George Lucas saw Battlestar Galactica and was livid. To him, it looked like a straight-up copy of Star Wars. The dogfights, the laser blasts, even the opening crawl, it all felt way too close. And honestly, he wasn't entirely wrong. Many of his own ILM effects crew worked on Galactica, bringing the same motion control camera systems with them. The result was space battles that looked like they'd flown right out of Lucas's galaxy. So Lucasfilm sued Universal, claiming more than 30 ideas were stolen. The lawsuit eventually fizzled out, but the damage stuck. Galactica was forever branded the show that dared copy the Force. Funny thing is, that reputation gave it a cult appeal Lucas probably never expected. Fact 4, a toy that killed.
Believe it. Believe it. It's the end of the void.
Now this one's chillin'. Mattel released Colonial Viper toys in 1978, complete with spring-loaded red missiles that fired across the room. Kids loved them until disaster struck. One child swallowed a missile and tragically died. Another choked in a separate incident. The news spread fast, horrifying parents everywhere. Suddenly, Battlestar wasn't just a TV show, it was linked to tragedy in the real world. Mattel had to recall the toys and redesign them, creating blunt, harmless versions. They even ran a missile mail-in program where kids sent back the dangerous ones. The incident didn't just affect Galactica, it changed toy safety laws across the entire industry. What was supposed to be fun, harmless merch ended up rewriting how toys were made forever. Fact 5, the alien clock failed.
The endless black void and the majestic star in the heavens.
Here's a strange one. Galactica didn't use minutes or hours. Instead, it ran on centons, microns, sectons, and yarans. It sounded futuristic, but there was one problem. Nobody actually knew how the system worked. Sometimes a centon was treated like a minute, other times like an hour. Even the actors didn't know what they were saying. Scripts contradicted themselves constantly, leaving fans completely lost. But instead of breaking immersion, it weirdly made the world feel more alien. Fans even created charts, essays, and debates trying to decode the show's broken clock. It turned into one of sci-fi's strangest continuity puzzles. Only Battlestar could take a total mistake and transform it into something that fans still argue about decades later. Fact 6, Mormonism in space.
The destruction of our fleet, our cities, of almost every living thing in the colonies.
Now this one blows people's minds. Creator Glenn Larson was a devout Mormon, and he slipped his faith right into the heart of Battlestar. The 12 colonies mirrored the 12 tribes of Israel. The planet Kobol was basically the Mormon planet Kolob. Even the prophecy-driven quest for Earth mirrored LDS teachings about destiny and faith. Most viewers just thought it was deep sci-fi world-building. But if you knew Mormon theology, the connections were obvious. It wasn't just space opera, it was scripture disguised in chrome helmets and starships. Battlestar was secretly preaching between the laser battles, blurring lines between Sunday sermons and Saturday night TV. It's one of the strangest examples of personal belief reshaping an entire sci-fi franchise. Fact 7. One man, two faces.
All right, Baltar, I want some answers, and I want the truth this time. You're coming with me.
Here's something people still debate. Patrick Macnee, a well-known British actor, was the voice of the Imperious Leader, the booming godlike ruler of the Cylons. But then, suddenly, he showed up on screen as Count Iblis, this devilish trickster with glowing eyes. Same guy, two huge roles. Fans were baffled. Was this intentional symbolism? Was Iblis secretly connected to the Cylons? Or was it just a cheap budget trick, recycling actors like props? Nobody ever explained it. Some viewers thought it was profound, others thought it was sloppy. Either way, it turned Macnee into the franchise's strangest chameleon, both the voice of ultimate authority and the literal devil manipulating the crew. Only Galactica could pull something that bizarre. Fact 8. Cue cards in space.
The last days. The final days of Kobol.
Okay, this one cracks me up. The weekly schedule was so brutal. Scripts often weren't even finished by the time actors stepped on set. So what did they do? They taped cue cards everywhere. Inside cockpits, behind control panels, even on each other's costumes. Those stiff pauses and awkward stares, they weren't acting. They were just reading lines off the wall. It turned entire scenes into unintentional comedy. But here's the thing. It gave the show this raw, unpredictable vibe. Every episode felt like it might fall apart at any second, and that actually made it exciting. Fans never knew if they were watching polished drama or chaos barely holding together. And honestly, that chaotic energy became Galactica's secret sauce.
Fact 9. The traitor who wouldn't die.
We are all living for the promise of freedom, and we're all threatened by a similar death.
Now, here's a twist. Baltar, the big traitor, was actually supposed to die in the very first story. In the theatrical version of the pilot, he betrays humanity, and the Cylons execute him on the spot. Brutal, clean, done. But when ABC ordered the show as a weekly series, the producers panicked. They realized they couldn't just have faceless robot villains every week. They needed a recurring human foil. So Baltar was spared. Instead of a one-off traitor, he became this smirking, slippery villain who kept causing chaos in every episode. That one rewrite totally reshaped the show. Without Baltar, Galactica would have been faceless pew-pew battles. With him, it became a weekly chess match against betrayal in human form. Fact 10. Cylons were almost reptiles.
The Cylon attack force, their sudden retreat was much too easy.
The Galactica was bearing down on.
Here's something most people miss. The Cylons weren't supposed to be robots at all. In early drafts, they were lizard-like aliens who wore armored suits. You can even spot a quick glimpse of a reptilian face under a helmet in the original cut of the pilot. But the censors weren't having it. They worried about kids watching living creatures get gunned down every week. It was just too violent. So the writers changed the Cylons into soulless machines. Ironically, that budget-friendly change made them scarier. Robots couldn't be reasoned with. They never felt pity, and they never stopped marching. The shift from alien reptiles to chrome drones turned out to be one of the best happy accidents in sci-fi history. Fact 11. Tanks in space.
Can't be, we're way out of range. Blue leader to base, we're under attack.
So when you think of a futuristic space fleet, you probably picture sleek hovercrafts and fancy shuttles, right? Not Galactica. When the crew had to land on planets, they rolled out in big clunky snowcats called landroms and snowroms. Basically, they were real Earth military vehicles with panels glued on. They roared across alien landscapes looking more like bulldozers than spaceships. Fans were baffled at first. It totally broke the illusion. But over time, those tanks became cult icons. Diehards even built models of them. It's one of those cases where penny pinching turned into weird charm. The irony, those tanks weren't futuristic at all. They were repurposed Earth machines, awkwardly pretending to be interstellar technology. Only Battlestar could pull that off. Fact 12. The Phantom Battlestars.
Record the short-range telemetry. We can at least see what they're after.
The Galactica wasn't the only ship out there. In dialogue, they kept mentioning other Battlestars. Columbia, Pacifica, Rykon, Triton. But here's the thing, we never saw them. No models were ever built, no designs ever created. They existed only as names. Some were said to be destroyed in the opening attack, others just vanished from lore. Fans latched onto those phantom ships, spinning theories, fan fiction, and even comics around them. Production notes listed even more names, like Prometheus, that never made it to screen. And that's the beauty of it. What you don't see sometimes sticks harder than what you do. A ghost fleet haunted the show, sparking imaginations long after the camera stopped rolling. Fact 13. Battlestar in your pocket.
Starbuck, they're forcing me down.
Now here's a throwback. Long before Game Boys or smartphones, Mattel released a Battlestar Galactica handheld LED game in 1978. With just a tiny black screen with red dots, but to kids it was magic. You played as a Viper pilot, blasting little beeping blips that represented Cylon raiders. Simple, repetitive, and strangely addictive. It sold out fast, especially right after the show's premiere. For kids of the 70s, it was the closest thing to piloting in the fleet. Today, those little machines are collector's gold, especially if they still light up. It's wild to think that Galactica wasn't just a TV show, it was also one of the first sci-fi universes you could literally carry in your pocket. Fact 14, the Cylon chain of command.
You did the only correct thing. You returned to the Galactica with these scans.
When people think of Cylons, they usually just picture those chrome soldiers with red scanner eyes. But the show actually gave them a full Empire hierarchy. At the bottom were the Silver Centurions, the foot soldiers. Then you had gold-armored commanders giving orders. Above them came the IL series, tall, creepy robots with glowing brains like Lucifer. And finally, at the very top, the Imperious leader, booming like a space dictator. It wasn't just mindless robots shooting lasers, it was a structured society with politics and ranks. Adults watching saw the eerie parallels to real-world regimes, while kids just saw scary robots. That extra detail made the Cylons way more than cannon fodder. They became a nightmare bureaucracy of chrome and fire. Fact 15, Muffet the robot dog was a chimp.
Muffet, Muffet, come back!
Every space crew needs a mascot, right? Galactica's was Muffet, the robotic Daggett. Basically their version of a space dog. But here's the kicker. Muffet wasn't a robot at all. Inside the costume was a chimpanzee named Evie. Yep, they stuck a live chimp in a furry rubber suit and told it to act like a dog. The result? Utter chaos. Evie chewed props, ignored commands, and freaked out the cast on set. To kids at home, Muffet looked like a loyal pet. To the crew, it was a walking disaster powered by bananas. It might just be the strangest robot in TV history. Less circuitry, more chimp tantrum. Only in the 70s could this ever make it to screen. Fact 16, Battlestar at the theme park.
What's the matter? Something serious?
Oh, no, we're just handling the safety of the entire fleet.
Even after the show got canceled, Galactica found a weird second life at Universal Studios Hollywood. In 1979, they added the Battle of Galactica to their tram tour. Tourists were suddenly plunged into a firefight with animatronic Cylons and live actors shooting lasers at the tram. Kids screamed, parents ducked, it was chaos in the best way. And here's the kicker, the ride lasted for 13 years until 1992. That means more people probably experienced Galactica through that ride than the actual TV show. Imagine that, a canceled series living longer as a theme park attraction than it ever did on television. For some kids, Battlestar Galactica wasn't something you watched. It was something that scared the life out of you on vacation. Fact 17, the Missile Recall Program.
I wish you'd have told the commander that. I'd like to figure some way to get out of there.
Remember those deadly Viper toys with spring-loaded missiles? Well, after the accidents, Mattel had to come up with a fix. They launched this bizarre missile mail-in program where kids actually mailed their dangerous red projectiles back to the company. In return, they got safer, blunt replacements. Imagine being a kid sending off the coolest part of your toy and getting something boring back. Parents were relieved, but collectors went nuts. Suddenly, the original unsafe versions became forbidden treasures, the kind of thing kids hid away like contraband. Today, those deadly little red missiles are worth a fortune. Crazy to think a show that lasted only one season managed to change the entire toy industry forever, and it wasn't done shaking things up.
Fact 18, blind chrome soldiers.
We were picked for this drop because we're expendable.
Okay, so the Cylons look terrifying on screen. Gleaming chrome, glowing red eyes, marching in lockstep. But here's the truth. The actors inside those suits could barely see. The only vision came from tiny pinholes hidden above the visor. They were basically blind. So what happened? Constant accidents. They stumbled, ran into walls, dropped their blasters, and even tripped over each other. Behind the scenes, it was slapstick comedy, not sci-fi menace. The blooper reels must have been hilarious. An army of supposedly unstoppable robots collapsing like dominoes. But thanks to clever camera work, kids at home never suspected a thing. They saw nightmare machines, not half-blind stuntmen praying they didn't faceplant on set. Honestly, the illusion of Cylon menace was built on blind luck. Fact 19, Jonathan Harris, the sassy robot.
No lights. Telemetry indicates total destruct.
Fans of Lost in Space instantly recognized the voice of Lucifer, Balter's glowing-headed robot sidekick. It was Jonathan Harris, Dr. Smith himself, back in sci-fi. But instead of menace, Harris gave Lucifer this sarcastic, campy personality. He cracked jokes, whined, and talked back to Baltar like a sassy assistant, not a terrifying machine. Some fans thought it was brilliant, others thought it ruined the mood, but nobody forgot it. You just couldn't take Lucifer seriously. He was too over the top. It was like pairing Darth Vader with a robot comedian. Galactica already had one of the weirdest villain lineups in TV, but adding a sarcastic, glowing-brained robot pushed it into uncharted territory. Love him or hate him, Lucifer turned the Chrome Empire into unintentional comedy. Fact 20, Egyptian gods in space. Now, if you look closely at the design of Battlestar Galactica, you'll notice something. It wasn't just futuristic, it was ancient. The production team borrowed heavily from ancient Egyptian imagery. The helmets of Viper pilots looked like pharaoh crowns. The tomb of Kobol was filled with hieroglyphs. Even the overall design had echoes of temples and pyramids.
Creator Glenn Larson didn't just want pew-pew space fights, he wanted myth and mysticism baked in. Fans who tuned in for robots ended up with spaceships that looked like they came straight out of history books. It blurred the line between science fiction and prophecy. Suddenly, Galactica wasn't just a space chase, it was religion and mythology dressed in chrome. No wonder it felt so strange. Fact 21, the clock that never worked.
Look, our boy and the wounded need water.
I said silence.
Remember those centons and microns we talked about earlier? Here's the kicker. They weren't just confusing in the scripts. They were inconsistent everywhere. One episode of centon meant a minute. In another, it was an hour. Even the show's official writer's guide contradicted itself. Fans spent decades trying to chart out the system, creating elaborate timelines and mathematical breakdowns. It became one of the strangest continuity puzzles in TV history. Instead of ruining immersion, the broken timekeeping made the world feel more alien. Fans actually embraced the nonsense, treating it like a mystery instead of a mistake. Only Battlestar Galactica could take an error so sloppy and turn it into lore that still fuels fan debates 40 years later. Fact 22, a budget-breaking pilot.
I said you're right on top. That's an order.
Galactica's pilot cost an eye-watering $8 million, astronomical for 1978 television. Sets were built like full-on movie productions. Models rivaled Star Wars quality, and every shot dripped with money. It was the most expensive TV movie of its time, and that's what doomed the series. ABC loved the spectacle, but refused to bankroll that level of grandeur every week. The result? Episodes had to recycle effect shots, cut corners, and even tape cue cards to finish on time. Galactica promised the stars, but the price tag dragged it back to Earth. It's a classic case of going too big too soon. The pilot wowed audiences, but it also cursed the series with expectations it couldn't afford to meet. Fact 23, the ride that outlived the show.
They have encountered probe fighter craft from the Galactica.
Even after ABC canceled the show, Galactica refused to die. Universal Studios added the Battle of Galactica to its tram tour in 1979. Imagine riding through the park when suddenly chrome Cylons leap out, firing lasers as animatronics explode around you. For kids, it was terrifying. For adults, it was thrilling. And here's the twist. The ride lasted until 1992, more than a decade after the series ended. That means an entire generation grew up knowing Galactica not as a TV show, but as a theme park attraction. Think about that. A canceled sci-fi series lived longer in fiberglass and smoke machines than it ever did on television. In a way, the ride became the franchise's most lasting legacy of the 80s. Fact 24, canceled in the stars.
Wouldn't surrender the bounty to the colonial commander.
By April 1979, the dream was over. After only 24 episodes, ABC canceled Battlestar Galactica. The cost was just too high, up to $1 million per episode, and executives couldn't justify it. But fans weren't having it. They wrote thousands of letters, organized campaigns, and basically bombarded the network with outrage. ABC caved, sort of. They revived it as Galactica 1980, a cheaper, kid-friendlier version. Problem was, it was terrible. The magic was gone, the stories were weaker, and the show limped through only 10 episodes before being canceled again. Yet the fan protests proved something. This wasn't just a short-lived TV experiment. It had birthed one of the most devoted cult audiences in science fiction history. Galactica fans weren't going anywhere. Fact 25, a collector's nightmare toy.
Well, when I was at the academy, if it didn't have a control stick...
After the tragedy with the missile-firing Vipers, Mattel recalled the toys. Kids had to mail back the red projectiles and get blunt replacements. At the time, kids hated it. They lost the coolest feature of their ship. But here's the ironic twist. Those original dangerous toys became legendary collectibles. Today, if you own an intact Viper with the spring-loaded missiles, it's worth hundreds, sometimes thousands. What was once considered unsafe junk has turned into a grail for toy collectors. It's a weird dual legacy, part tragic cautionary tale, part holy relic for fans. Galactica may have flopped as a series, but its toys are still battling it out on eBay today. Not bad for plastic missiles no bigger than your pinky.
Fact 26, a symphony of war.
Expecting the surface could be pitch black, snow powder, pack ice.
Most TV shows in the 70s got by with small studio orchestras or even stock music. Not Galactica. They went all out with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Composer Stu Phillips' score sounded like it belonged in a Hollywood blockbuster. When those Vipers launched, it wasn't just pew-pew lasers, it was full-on opera in space. Critics were stunned. This was Saturday night TV, but it roared like a cinematic epic. That score became one of the show's most lasting legacies, recycled in spin-offs and even played in concert decades later. Think about it. This one-season wonder had music grand enough to fill concert halls. It's proof that even if Galactica couldn't afford to last, it still sounded like the biggest show on Earth. Fact 27, Chrome Soldiers in comedy. You know how terrifying the Cylons looked with their polished chrome and glowing red eyes? Behind the scenes, they were anything but scary. The actors inside those heavy suits were basically blind. They had to peek through tiny holes just above the visor. Result, they crashed into walls, tripped over props, and even bumped into each other during marches. Blooper reels show entire squads of Cylons collapsing like clumsy dominoes. On screen, they looked like unstoppable killing machines. Off screen, they were one step away from a slapstick comedy routine. It's amazing how editing and music turned pratfalls into menace. Honestly, it makes you wonder how many times kids were terrified at home while the cast was laughing their heads off. Fact 28. Lucifer's sarcasm.
Columbia was destroyed at the peace conference.
Remember Baltar's sidekick Lucifer? He wasn't just another scary robot. He was voiced by Jonathan Harris, the same actor who played the flamboyant Dr. Smith in Lost in Space. Instead of menace, Harris gave Lucifer this sassy, sarcastic personality. He cracked jokes, rolled his voice in dramatic flair, and turned every scene into a bizarre comedy act. Some fans loved it, others hated it, but no one forgot it. In a way, Lucifer lightened the mood in a show that could have been way too dark. But it also made the Cylon Empire look a little ridiculous, like Darth Vader hanging out with a stand-up comedian. Still, it gave Galactica another unique flavor, campy humor inside all that shiny chrome terror. Fact 29. Egyptian space gods.
It would be mass suicide to send out a squadron of fighters. You've seen what that weapon can do.
One of the strangest things about Galactica's look is how much it borrowed from ancient history. Production designers didn't just make up futuristic sets, they leaned heavily on Egyptian imagery. The helmets of the Viper pilots looked like pharaoh crowns. The tomb of Kobol was designed like an ancient temple, complete with hieroglyphs. Even the mythology of the show tied into Earth's past. Fans expected spaceships and robots, but what they got was a blend of sci-fi and mysticism. It felt less like a space chase and more like prophecy. Suddenly, Battlestar wasn't just about survival, it was about destiny written in ancient stone. It's part of what made the show feel so unique and honestly so strangely unforgettable. Fact 30, the clock that lied.
I don't know what to do, but if something flashed red, I could just yell.
You'd think after inventing alien words for time, the writers would at least stay consistent. Nope, Galactica's time system, centons, microns, sectons, was a mess. One episode, a centon meant a minute. Next episode, it meant an hour. Even the show's official guide couldn't keep it straight. Fans noticed immediately, and instead of ignoring it, they leaned in. They wrote fan theories, created elaborate charts, and argued endlessly about what the units actually meant. What started as sloppy writing turned into one of the fandom's longest-running debates. Galactica proved something strange, that even mistakes can become canon if fans love them enough. A broken clock might not tell the right time, but in this case, it kept the fan community ticking. Fact 31, the $8 million gamble.
Program of computer research for qualified personnel.
Here's the financial gut punch. The pilot alone cost $8 million. In 1978, that was an insane number for TV. Sets were built with film-level detail, ships looked like they belonged in theaters, and every effect screamed big budget. The pilot wowed audiences, but it also set expectations the weekly show could never match. ABC wasn't willing to keep writing blank checks, so corners had to be cut immediately. Effect shots were recycled, scripts rushed, and quality slipped. Galactica launched like a rocket but crashed under its own weight. The irony, that one pilot made it both a legend and a liability. It became known as one of the most expensive mistakes in TV history and one of its cult triumphs. Fact 32, Muffet the Daggett was alive.
Muffet wanted to see snow.
Okay, this might be the weirdest one. Remember Muffet, the adorable robotic Daggett? Well, surprise, it wasn't a robot at all. Inside that furry rubber costume was a live chimpanzee named Evie. Imagine being on set with a hot, sweaty chimp forced to crawl around pretending to be a dog. Total chaos. Evie chewed on props, ignored cues, and freaked out the cast more than once. To kids watching at home, Muffet looked like a loyal space pup. To the crew, it was a banana-fueled disaster waiting to happen. Honestly, it's one of the strangest production choices in TV history. Instead of building an animatronic, they stuffed a chimp into a dog suit and rolled the cameras. Only in the 70s. Fact 33, the movie that shook theaters.
She looks like she could take us all on with or without chains.
Here's a wild one. Before Americans even saw Galactica on TV, Universal released a shorter version of the pilot in movie theaters overseas. And not just any theaters, they used Sensurround, the bass-heavy system that literally shook the seats. People thought they were going to see a fun Star Wars-style knockoff, and instead, they were being rattled by sound waves. Some walked out with headaches, others loved the spectacle. Then, a longer cut aired on ABC, making Galactica both a movie and a show at the same time. Imagine sitting in a theater in 1978, feeling the floor shake as Cylon ships exploded. For a moment, Galactica wasn't just TV, it was one of the loudest movies you could possibly experience. Fact 34, the Star Wars crew built it.
Jump up. You and Boomer get them and take them to the briefing room.
Here's the part George Lucas probably hated most. The same effects guys who made Star Wars helped build Galactica. John Dykstra, fresh off his Oscar for Star Wars, formed Apogee and brought other ILM veterans with him. They used the same motion control rigs and techniques that blew everyone away in A New Hope. So of course the space battles looked similar. They were made by the same hands. It was less copycat and more shared DNA. Lucas still sued, but behind the scenes, it was basically Star Wars 2.0 happening on a TV budget. That's why the pilot looked like a blockbuster and why it nearly bankrupted ABC. Galactica wasn't ripping off Star Wars, it was borrowing its own family members. Fact 35, Jane Seymour's exit deal.
Starbuck, who are we talking about?
Commander Kane.
This one still stings. Jane Seymour played Serena, Apollo's love interest, and fans loved her, but Seymour didn't want to be locked into a weekly series. She wanted freedom to do other projects, so she agreed to return only if her character was killed off in a memorable way. That's why Serena dies early on, shocking fans and leaving Apollo devastated. It wasn't planned as a dramatic twist, it was an actress's exit clause. Imagine if she'd stayed, Apollo and Boxy's storyline might have played out completely differently. Instead, her death gave the show one of its most emotional moments, but also left fans wondering what could have been. Serena's fate wasn't destiny, it was a contract negotiation written in script pages. Bonus fact, the curse word that lived. You couldn't swear on network TV in the 70s, so the Galactica writers came up with a clever workaround. They invented their own curse word, frack. It slipped past censors because technically it wasn't a real word, but everyone watching knew exactly what it meant. Characters said it with attitude, like real profanity, and fans instantly latched onto it. What started as a throwaway censor dodge became one of the show's most enduring legacies. When the 2000s reboot rolled around, frack came roaring back, this time as a central part of the dialogue. Fans even started using it in real life, safe enough for kids, but rebellious enough for adults. Think about that. A made-up swear word outlived the entire original series. Now that's immortality.